All right, welcome back. We are here. Um, we are here with our next session and an amazing, talented speaker. Camille Padilla will be joining us, and I will go ahead and bring her on stage. Camille, where are you joining us from?
I am joining you from Chicago, Illinois. How are you?
Chi Town. All right,
Yeah,
we're good.
Chi-town, honey.
We're good. We're so excited to have you here with us today. So we'll have a full half an hour with you. And
Love.
today's topic of conversation is going to be really important for a lot of our attendees. It'll be key techniques to a successful virtual interview. So that will be the topic of conversation for today. Before we get into it, let me just let our attendees know a little bit more about yourself, Camille, which is an amazing bio. So before
Thank
going
you.
to Biodome, you were vice president at a top boutique political media firm, um, and you ran operations and budgets for multi-million dollar ad campaigns. But you've also written, directed, and produced national TV commercials. And just tell us a little bit more about Vodium and how it came to you. And now it's been operating for about 2 years. So tell us a little bit more about you, your background, Vodium, and then we'll get into the meaty part of how to have good techniques for successful virtual interviews, which is pretty much a lot of the ways I believe it's been happening since the past couple of years. And I can only say I think it's going to continue to grow. So the stage is yours, Camille. So let us
Aw,
know.
thank you. Thank you so, so, so much. I'm so excited to be here and I'm so excited to chat and interact with so many individuals from across the globe. But my name is Camille Padilla. I am the co-founder of Vodium, which stands for Virtual Podium. We are an app designed to make you come off confident, in control, and professional by helping you make eye contact consistently when you are on video. So, just like you mentioned about my background, when the pandemic hit, I was based in Los Angeles and I was vice president at an advertising firm. So, the midterm elections are coming up, and I was in political advertising. So if you are seeing all of those advertising, those commercials that just bombard your television, your digital, anywhere where you are, I would travel across the country and talk to constituents and get them set up on camera, make them feel confident, and be a part of political campaign videos. So when the pandemic happened, I was doing a Senate video for the Senate race in Maine, and I had to quickly pivot to conduct a multi-million dollar campaign ad on Zoom. And I did not find an app that was like a teleprompter, but that was built to sit on top of video conferences and right underneath your computer's camera to teach the user that their new audience or whomever they wanted to make an impression on was now their computer's camera or your device's camera. And that's a really intimidating and not a comfortable place to be. So April 2020, I opened up the company with my best friend. We've been running since then, and we've constantly been learning about this evolving market. And the reason why I'm so excited to chat today is because, you know, there's definitely an intimidating factor when it comes to successful interviews. And I've had many, many interviews, and I can't wait to share my tips and tricks. But, if your interviews are now being conducted on video, I want us to be a little bit excited because with Vodium, and I'll share a link later into the session, and it gives everyone a year off for free. But with Vodium, it can really just let you be at ease when conducting your interviews. It can help you nail your main points and the key things that you want to get across. So I'm excited to dive in. Of
Yeah, thank you so much. Wow, that's
course.
amazing. Yes. So tell us a little bit more about. It's great response from the chat as well. It's really exciting. So
Awesome.
tell us a little bit more about throughout your journey for successful virtual interviews. What are some of the things you learned not to do, and then we can go one of the things you learned to do, and maybe some tips for our attendees.
Yeah. So, I come from an awesome background. My mom came to the United States when she was from 10 years old. My dad had been in the United States for generations to come, but he came from a military background, and his dad, didn't finish his college career until well into his 40s, and then he ended up being a high school principal, which was a big deal coming from a Latino background in the United States. And he had just really pushed into my dad about your overall presence as a person and how you come across, right? And so, virtual interview aside, when making a good impression on someone, I really want everyone on this call to be like so excited to, promote yourself, to learn new things, and to really see how you can evolve as a professional, as a person, when owning your qualities, but also speaking to the test or arising to the challenge. So, for any successful interview, and this is how we can tie it back to Vodium and now virtual, right? I was taught to make a good impression with eye contact and a firm handshake, right? And to constantly have this engaged presence. Well, now that it's 2022 and handshakes are not as prevalent, we're now on video. So the biggest thing is to have eye contact and to come off engaged. And that's why I'm super excited to talk about Vodium on how it can literally give every single person here just that edge and that advantage that they need. And that's first and foremost, like how to get ready for any good interview is to come in excited, ready to engage, and having that firm and consistent eye contact. And then I'm excited to see what you got next in terms of questions, but I have like 5 tips that I always do for every interview.
Yes, definitely. And for the eye contact, that's an amazing tip and important, and especially in virtual space because we can't have a physical handshake.
Right.
Energy is important. What would you say, like tone of voice, for example?
Yeah. So one of my first tips when approaching an interview is obviously to do your research. And within that research, what really comes out of that whole process is that you're getting more comfortable. And to be comfortable means that, your whole body language, your whole nervous system hopefully can be a lot calmer through the whole interview process. And so with that research, let's say someone is going to conduct, or I'm conducting an interview, I am hiring for a position at Vodium. What I hope the individual that I'm interviewing would do is do research on me both personally and professionally, or find a nugget of information that can put everyone at ease from the beginning of the conversation, right? And that would hopefully then help the individual be a lot calmer, as anyone in meditation or yoga practices, those deep breaths before any conversation. Or if you're an athlete and you've ever performed in, let's say, a soccer match, you're nervous until you get the ball for the first time and you make a successful pass and you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't that bad, now I'm in the game. So to get that comfort and that ease and to be personable, right? Because what I've learned in all of my successful interviews, the reason why I keep on moving forward is because I made a personal connection, right? So if someone I'm interviewing with, I'm trying to hire them for a position, but I want to see if I really jive with them. They find out through going through my personal LinkedIn that I went to DePaul University in Chicago. One of their cousins is applying to DePaul University. So they immediately start this conversation. Like, before I dive in, Camille, I'd love to know a little bit about DePaul University. I hope you don't mind, but my cousin is looking to apply and I would love to ask, like, did you like it? Right. And that immediately is creating some equal ground between us two. And it's giving some great energy for the rest of the interview, but then hopefully putting everyone at ease.
Right. And I think that's a great way to break the ice, like as an
Yes.
icebreaker, because I feel as, someone I've done I've done interviews and been interviewed as well. I think I can relate many ways as everyone that you come maybe with nerves, maybe excitement,
Yeah.
so anything to calm the nerves down and and to like you were saying feel that um, I don't know, feel like you can be okay, like, you don't have to be so nervous or anxious, and that's great. Yeah, and we have a poll as well, there's a poll, and it says, "On a scale from 1 to 3, how confident are you with virtual interviews?" So far, there's been votes, about 30 votes in so far, and it's about the highest one is 2, so somewhat confident.
Oh,
So
okay.
how can we how can we help our attendees feel more confident? What are some other tips that you may have for their virtual interviews?
Yeah, one of the things, especially with interviews, it's definitely a vulnerable experience when looking for a position. But if you don't address things head on when it comes to an interview, you're putting the interviewee at an advantage. And so, or the interviewer at an advantage. So, there are so many individuals out there that apply for positions that you would be like, in what world are they applying for that? Right. And we can, as probably so many people on this chat know, that there are a lot of people historically that have gotten positions and they haven't thought twice about if they're able to rise to the challenge, or if their background or their criteria and their experience meet exactly what that job position is looking for. So let's say I'm applying for a job and I only have 3 years experience, but this job is asking for 5 years of experience. Any job that you are applying for, it should be a leap. You should be a little like, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna be new. I don't really know that part of this job position. I definitely would need to evolve there." But I feel very confident that the foundational experiences that I can bring to the table is what this job position really, really needs. So when you are going into a job position and you know that there are some gaps that you will definitely have to reach, well, that's any new job position that I hope you'd be applying for. Because if you keep on applying to jobs that are at your level, right? No, you got to keep on elevating and advancing and challenging yourself. I've had so much success at owning the conversation and actually reining in the ownership of the interview. So, hey Jeanette, I understand that there's like 5 years that you are looking for, but I really want to talk about my experiences and how I've overcome adversity. I had an internship in Washington, D.C. with Senator Dick Durbin, and the amount of hands-on experience that I had really makes me confident that I will be able to take this portion of the job head on, right? So if you feel like this interviewer is going to address head on, hey, your resume says that you have 3 years experience. We're actually looking for 5. Then meet that challenge, address it head on. Don't let them bring it up. You be the one to bring it up and just massage it into your answers. And so by the time that the person wraps up the interview, they're like, what just happened there? That was amazing, and I had everything answered, right? So do your research is one that I just mentioned, and then rise to that challenge. Talk about how you've overcome adversity and address head on any gaps that you feel that the interviewer may bring up, and you get in front of it before they do.
Incredible, Camille. And thank you so much for sharing. And we have some incredible as well questions and
Okay.
Q&A. So we could do kind of more like a fire chat because I hope we can, get to all the questions. They're really great. So we'll start off with this question. It's for some people, eye contact is really uncomfortable. How can you engage well enough to make a connection without there being such a focus on eye contact?
Yeah, in the virtual setting, I think the hard thing is that eye contact is really going to be one of the main ways that you're going to have to relate. And so this is why I'll drop in the chat, and Jeanette, you'll let me know if I'm going to do it correctly, but I'm going to drop it into the chat. We've created a link specifically this morning for everyone on this channel, and you're going to get a year of Vodium for free. And so the eye contact is going to be the main driving force, right? But from that, what I've mentioned is, trying to get something right off from the beginning to make everyone at ease, right? Like Jeanette said, that icebreaker, right? But also coming across really well, um, prepared for whatever comes your way, right? So Jeanette was mentioning body language, tone of voice. So before your interview, if you can just like literally close your eyes, do some deep breaths, like remind yourself this should be an exciting, not intimidating thing. And if there's any notion of like, ooh, this is intimidating, well, maybe because it's new, but how can you flip that mind frame of like, no matter what happens out of this experience, I'm learning more information about the professional atmosphere and how I can consistently evolve and start being a better and better and better interviewee. But I think another amazing thing when coming across prepared in an interview is how you're listening to the interviewer ask questions, right? So when Jeanette's asking me a question, I'm really looking at her or at the camera, digesting it, nodding my head, getting excited so she can kind of see like, oh, I'm ready to answer this question. But then when I respond, right, how can you take what she said and start off your response with what she mentioned and with what she asked? So, Jeanette, I love that you asked that question about how my prior position would be very suitable for this. That question really excites me. So when I start to, you know, mention and use what Jeanette asked me within my answer, that's going to be a really powerful way for you to be in control of the conversation. But for that individual on the other side to be like, wow, damn, she's listening. She is excited. But that is a very huge professional tip. I also went to school for broadcast journalism. That's a really huge tip that immediately makes that person on the other side make them feel very impressed by you. So that's one of my favorite tips. If you're like getting a little overwhelmed with everything, be super attentive and then flip their question into your answer and take it from there.
That's another great tip. You mentioned listening, which I think is a great skill, listening. And then
Yeah,
the last tip you just mentioned is kind of repeating the last thing they said, but on to the conversation. So I liked how you mentioned that. Thank you so much.
of
And
course.
there's many amazing questions, so we'll just see how many we can get to. But Justine is asking, she'd love to learn about more different strategies to make a personal connection with the interviewer. A recruiter sent her interviewer's LinkedIn profile. How do you make a connection with someone you don't have similarities with?
That we don't have similarities. My camera just switched too. Um, how should I look? Is this
Uh,
now right
yes,
on?
this is great. Yes, yeah, you can look at us here.
So if someone sent you someone's LinkedIn profile before, right? That was the question.
Yes, I believe the question was regarding how do you interact with someone when you don't have as many similarities. Um, but yes, I think we're having technical.
That's
Um,
okay, but as long as people can hear me, right?
yes, I can hear you. Yes.
You know what? I think the biggest thing for that is, I don't want anyone to feel flustered if for some reason they don't have any personal nugget of information or something that they can feel relatable with that interviewer about. But if you come curious about something, then that's like the biggest driving force. So, It's just about asking questions from the beginning. So if I know that Jeanette's interviewing me, I'm like, oh, I've scrolled through her LinkedIn. I feel like I have nothing in common with her. You know what? Hey, Jeanette, if you don't mind, before we dive in, just so I can get a sense of how this interview is going to go, like how long have you worked at this position? Or if you feel a little intimidated by that question, be like, where are you located? Like, where are you calling in from? Right? And just have some dialogue before you dive in, or being like, "Oh, I'm so excited to chat right now. I'm in a cafe in Chicago. Have you ever been to Chicago?" You right? Like talk about your setting, immerse them within where you are coming from, and make light of the situation of the whole virtual atmosphere too. So that may be something that you can kind of make light of the situation. But before the session comes to an end, um, I, anyone who wants to reach out to me personally, my email is camille@vodium.us. And if you feel like you didn't get your answer question today, I'm happy to talk to anyone individually as well and remedy them through any scenarios of interviews.
Thank you, Camille. Yes, and unfortunately, we only have a few moments left, but we'll end with one more question.
Sure.
Jaquise asked, "How do I explain my experience and confidence in a way that the person comprehends, that my skills can transfer, but without talking too much? Also, how can we be confident without coming across as arrogant or naive?"
Oh, that's a great question. Well, you know what? If you have a smile on your face and you're just excited to be there, and if you do have that underlining, you know, genuine approach to it, then your energy and your body language is going to come off that way. But if you feel insecure at any point, and if you feel, that you need to prove yourself, then that is definitely going to come across, right? And so however you can work on yourself and how you approach professional reaching higher goals and successes, like I've had to work on that. Like running my own company has been extremely hard in terms of how I approach myself and how I comfort myself and my psyche of like, who am I proving this to, right? No one, because at the end of the day, the only way we'll keep on advancing in our career is by gaining new experiences. So another thing that that question mentioned was not talking too much. That's brilliant, right? Like I've been taught that in so many ways of when to know when to stop. So a lot of that is involved with practicing. So when you're going into an interview, you can and you should maybe write down like 5 to 10 questions that you feel like you'll probably need to speak to. Definitely it's going to be your experience. What's your relevant experience that you had prior to this job that you feel would make you an adequate hire for this position, right? And start writing those thoughts down, typing them out, and rehearsing them. So, whether or not those exact questions are asked, once you start practicing and getting familiar with how you want to come across and what you really want to highlight in that meeting, then when you're actually in that environment and in the actual interview, you're going to be a lot more prepared, right? If people do not practice, rehearse, and research and prepare, that is going to make you a little bit more nervous. And we've always been told from a young age, right? Practice does make perfect. And the reason why it helps us so much is because we're getting our whole body, our mind ready and prepared for these situations. And I think one thing that I want to stress with virtual, it has removed this type of relational skill that still needs to be stressed. And that is if I'm going into something that's really new and intimidating to me, then the best way to remedy that is to practice and to rehearse and to come prepared. And just because I am over a video doesn't mean that that still can't come across that I care. I want it to come across that I care. So if you care, and you're eager and you're excited, then that will come across. And then if you practice and rehearse, then it will come across too.
Excellent, excellent, excellent tips. And something that was running in my mind when you said, "Do you ever practice in the mirror, or do you recommend practicing, talking interview in the mirror, or with like a friend, doing like a practice interview?"
Oh my
Um,
gosh, practice in the mirror. I practice out loud. I practice when I'm walking. One of the biggest challenges, but one of the most important things to do, what you mentioned, is practicing with someone else. It depends on how much time you have. I am really intimidating when, I have to go write a paper and I'm like, oh, I have to write a paper. And, I'm the type of person who is still stuck on the first sentence 5 hours later. When you're practicing, that means you're molding something within your mind. So when you start practicing with yourself or with someone else, don't be too hard on yourself. Tell that person out loud if you need to say out loud, like, hey, like, if this is what I do, like, if I'm afraid, like, I'm not going to come across on my A game, like, oh, I haven't really prepared, like, screw that aside, like, just start rehearsing, just start saying something. And then over time, let's say that morning you practice with that person and then a day later you practice with that person, it's going to be better. It's going to get better, right? If you're going to practice with someone too, like be open with them, like I'd love to hear your feedback. Or if you get stuck on something because you're breaking down and you're a little nervous because you don't know how to answer that, ask them how they would answer that. And then work with them. So however you can find ways to also workshop with people and make it a process, because when you're learning something, you're not perfect from the get-go, and just start getting yourself used to it. But practice wherever and however you want to, even if you're talking out loud to yourself. It's okay.
Practice, practice, good. Those are great
Yeah.
tips. Practice, rehearse with your friends, talk in the mirror, something, I've done before, speeches, and just, eye contact, engagement, body language, so many great
Yes.
tips, Camille. And thank you so much. Unfortunately,
Of
we're out of
course.
time. This has been such an enlightening conversation. And if you could just, can you remind us what the code is for our
Yes.
Tribaja
Now I'm
attend?
gonna now I'm realizing, look at all.
So while she finds the code, we'll get that for you guys momentarily. We'll have, oh, there she is. Oh, there you are.
There I am. I just dropped a link. So originally I had set Tribaja a code, but this morning we actually created just an app that never requires a code for 1 year. So this is going to be the best way to approach it. So there's a link. I just dropped it. I'll drop it again. Press that. You'll enter in some information, and then you'll be able to download Vodium for your Mac or your Windows computer. If anyone runs into any issues, email me at camille@vodium.us. But if anyone else is just looking for a shoulder to cry on, a shoulder to vent on, someone to rehearse with, ask me questions, my email's also in the chat as well.
Awesome. One last thing, Camille. I think it says it's requiring a password. Will they need a password for that link?
Okay, let me see. If there is a password, go to Vodium 365.
All right. So if you're clicking on the link, everyone, and it requires a password, try Vodium365 for the
Yes.
password. Thank you so much, Camille. It's been so great to talk to you and learn about Vodium, and wishing all of our interviewees out there success for their future virtual interviews. So we will end this session. Thank you so much,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Everyone, we'll see you in the lobby, and we'll see you at the next session, which will be defining what it means to be in an inclusive workspace. Thank you so much. Thank you, Camille.